Hey, soccer fans, it's back. We're back. That's right. It's Between the Posts here for another season in the Premier League. And it's, of course, Matt and Jason here to guide you through each and every single week of the Premier League. Much like last season, we'll kick it off with today's show, which will be a season long preview of the Premier League. What happened in the transfer window? Who got better? Who got worse? And then some season long predictions to go along with it. Matt and I are hooking back up for another season. Happy to do so with Matt. How are you doing there, man?
Oh, it's always great to be on here with you, Jason. Yeah, really excited about this season. There's so many incomings, outgoing players.
Yeah.
The transfers are always something that I've been fascinated with ever since I really got into the league, and there's been a lot of good ones this year and a lot of stuff to break down.
Yeah, there certainly has. This couple things I wanted to get into before we did the kind of like team by team kind of analysis is one thing is I think we almost have to talk about it off the top is just the number of players and the quality of players that are going over to Saudi Arabia and maybe how it's affected it. I was completely shocked by Ronaldo starting the trend just because he's kind of a very spotlight person and wants to be in the news, and I thought going there would be counterproductive to kind of maybe who he is as a person. That's just kind of opened the floodgates. You're seeing players in their prime go over there. Your Manes, your even your Ruben Neveses, Riyad Mahrez still has a couple of years of playing at a top level. Benzema. What are your overall just thoughts of the players and the quality of players heading on over to Saudi Arabia?
I think it's scary for like the European leagues as a whole. I think that a lot of people they say that this is kind of what the Premier League has been doing now for the last 10 years. You poach the best players from Italy and Spain and you pay them more money and that's I mean, we have, loved the Premier League for all this many years and but I do think that it's definitely scary just where you don't know where the future of football is going to go. You kind of have this dividing line. Messi goes to America. He's tearing it up right now. Ronaldo goes to Saudi Arabia. There's more players will be going to Saudi because the amount of money is ridiculous. You see Jordan
Ridiculous.
Henderson leaving. Jordan Henderson now is, I think, a top five most paid player in the entire world. So the fact that he's making that kind of money and he's kind of just a middle aged midfielder
Yeah.
with not a ton of hoopla around him. He doesn't do that many things like, he's not like Ronaldinho or something like that,
Yeah.
like dribbling around a bunch of people. Like he's about as like cookie cutter midfielder as it gets. Um, so it's scary. You just don't know. Like, yeah, you see a Ruben Neves at the top of his game.
Top of his
He's
game.
definitely in his prime. Mares, like you mentioned, 2 years for sure at the top of his game.
Saint
You just
Maximum.
don't know where it's going to go. You're scared to say that like it's going to happen more. Like there's going to be like it's amazing that Mbappe turned down the deal. I mean, think about how much money he turned down that could have flipped everything on its head. You just feel like they're going to get somebody here in the next year or two at their 24, 25-year-old prime. And that's just going to be just odd. It's weird. I don't know.
And overall, I think one of the worst things will come out of this, and you see it with your Manchester United and some of the bigger teams, is whenever you're involving like a player transfer, like one of the things you want to do is get Man United involved because it'll run up, bring up the price. Well, Saudi Arabia is going to now inflate the market if they're splashing out the monies and they're tempting these players. And if you want to compete in these other, let's say top five leagues, it just brings up the valuation on everything, and now you're overvaluing every player. So we'll see what happens. It's been a fascinating summer with them now jumping into this mix. Though, and also, was it Klopp or Guardiola that mentioned how the Premier League really needs to step in because their transfer window is open until the end of September, which you could still be poaching these players, once these seasons started, and that's also not fair. So they definitely got to you know, get a grasp on this and I think try and level the playing field a little bit. So, all right, wanted to talk about Saudi Arabia there. The other thing before we jump into these clubs is do keep in mind the Premier League transfer window is open until September 1st. So just like last season we did the Premier League preview show, guys can still come and go after this Premier League show. We'll try and talk about obviously everything that's happened up until this and maybe some rumors that are currently floating. But the thing that about this is it really just helps the big clubs. If they were to suffer an injury in the first 3 games while the window's still open, the big clubs have enough money where they can overpay to bring in a replacement. The small clubs can't. So hopefully I've never liked that the window stays open past the start of the window. It is, or past the start of the season. It is what it is. I hate it. It's hard to do business later on in the window because the replacement, to get the replacements harder too. So, but it is worth mentioning though the window does stay open there until September 1st. All right. With that being said, let's kick it on into it. We're only going to be with you guys for an hour. We want to try and hit, obviously, some of the bigger clubs, obviously, from the start while we have time permitting. We are going to go ahead and open up that comment section as well. So if you're there, if you want to comment on some of these clubs and some of these players as well, we'll make sure we shout them out throughout the show. Let's jump right on into it, Matt. Let's just start with Arsenal right off the top of the page. I don't know. You want to speak on? Why don't we first speak on obviously who is the greatest, highest British transfer player ever, which is now Declan Rice. I thought it was probably the position they needed to fortify the most was that midfield with Partey and Xhaka. That was clearly what was holding them back last season was the strong midfielder. They bring in Declan Rice. What are some of the thoughts there, Matt?
Yeah, it's a dream signing, I think, for Arsenal. I think the price. You can debate on price all you want. Like, do I think he's a €100 million player? No, I don't. But I still think that you go and get your guy. Um, he is, yeah, he fills in that stopgap. Xhaka leaves for Leverkusen. Partey with his injuries that he had towards the back end of last season, you could see that they needed, like you kind of mentioned, to fortify that slot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was a solid, probably 9 out of 10 transfer move for Arsenal.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, and then they address some of the other needs. Really, their defensive depth is strong now. I mean, they go get Jurian Timber from Ajax, pay 40-50 million euros for him. He's a quality player, very versatile. He can play fullback. Like I think in the preseason here in America, he started his first match at left back, but I think that he's generally a right back. But he can also play as a center half as well. So just more defensive depth. I think that was something that they needed to identify because like towards the back end of last season, I mean they were favorites to win the league going into the last couple months, and I think that some injuries caught up with them, and Arteta's done a great job to secure those positions and make sure that if things do go wrong at the back in terms of injury luck, that they've got valid replacements. So I think that both of those two were very, very solid.
I love that you brought up the word depth a few times in speaking of that, because you remember when we sat here a year ago, I showed a multi-$1,000 bet on Manchester City to win the league, and part of my justification was they've just got the depth to handle all the competitions and to go from now until May. And Arsenal is starting to do that. They shored up the depth. They did that with one piece we haven't mentioned yet, which is Kai Havertz. When I initially saw that signing, I was like, that's an awful lot of money, and I don't quite remember the number off the top of my head, but call it 70 million, roughly speaking, off the top of my head. I was like, he's not going to start over Martinelli. He's not going to start over Gabriel Jesus. He's not going to come in for Saka, or he's not going to come in for Odegaard. So, like, where is he going to play? That's a ton of money for depth. And then what happens to Gabriel Jesus? He gets a knee injury in the preseason games, and now you've got a natural replacement where Kai Havertz can slide right up. They didn't have that last season, so while it may have been, it looked like, I thought, a little bit of an overpay, this is what Arsenal need to do, is shore up that depth. Now he can slide in for Gabriel Jesus, and then when Jesus is back in it, now you've got a nice piece that can come in late in game, 65, 70 minute. They've obviously got Trossard that they brought in, obviously, in January. So it's Phil, just very much a very strong, solid side. Shored up the midfield through Declan Rice, brought in some offensive depth through Kai Havertz. Like what they're doing. I don't quite understand the goalkeeper, though, right? I saw the tweet a few months ago where, like, they signed Martinelli to a contract extension. It was Saka to a contract extension. One of those players was Ramsdale. Now, reportedly, they just spent $25 million on Sanchez to bring him over from Brighton. People generally know how I feel about a goalkeeper. Now you've paid a goalkeeper in Ramsdale starter money. You've brought over Sanchez for $25 million. That's the one I don't quite get. Everything else I like what Arsenal's doing this summer.
Yeah, so I'm in a little bit of a different move. I think that the Havertz move was like a 5 out of 10, really, because one, I don't think that he's that great of a player. I know that he had a nice season, probably what was that 3 years ago with Chelsea, where he kind of led the line and scored in the Champions League final to beat Man City. But so the thing here is I think that Nketiah will start now at striker at the beginning of the season. It will not be Havertz, Jason. They bought Havertz to be a midfielder, which I thought was like they bought Havertz to basically play alongside of Odegaard as a number 8, which I don't think that that's his role. I mean, he's not used to defensive.
Hmm.
I think that that's basically them assuming that they're going to just dominate possession, and then you have kind of a striker like Havertz that gets to play a little bit more higher up in the midfield, and maybe he can help create more and help against deeper lying defenses.
Yeah.
I mean that's understandable, um, but I don't think that he's going to sub in here immediately for Jesus up top. He's had a really poor preseason, really for the most part. I know he scored a couple goals, but I mean, I don't know if you saw the video of him at the All Star, the volleys, the volley competition, the All Star, the MLS All Star. It was so bad, but he did end up scoring a couple matches in a row after that. Um,
That's what he does. I mean, all strikers miss opportunities. He kind of misses a little more than maybe other guys. Um,
mhm.
but I think what you mentioned there, and that's exactly what Arteta said when they signed him. He brings in a winning mentality. Remember, he scored the goal against Man City that got Chelsea that 1-0 final win in the Champions League, and that's what Arteta stresses: bringing in winners, guys, bringing that mentality of we know what it's like to put our hands on a trophy. He is like that. He fits that bill. I'm with you. Like I said, I thought it was too much money. I thought it was a player maybe they generally didn't need. So you said 5 out of 10. I can get along with that. Maybe
Mhm.
it'll be a little bit more important here in the beginning with Jesus out, but yeah, I certainly do agree. All right, should we move
Yeah.
on to
So
another team?
yeah, just wanted to mention kind of the David Raya move, like you kind of talked about, is just in terms of it's kind of a head scratcher, like you said. It reminds me of 2 years ago when they signed um, their current goalkeeper Ramsdale, because they had Leno in place, and Leno was one of the better players for Arsenal, and they sign. Then they go ahead and they make the transfer for Ramsdale,
Ramsdale, yeah.
and now everyone's kind of asking like, first of all, Ramsdale had a really poor preseason. I know that because I just have a couple of my good buddies are Arsenal fans, and like he's had a really bad preseason. What happens with our boy Matt Turner for USA? Then obviously he's got to go. I think that he wants to get minutes. He needs to be a starter somewhere around Europe. He was brilliant this summer in the Gold Cup and the other tournament that USA was in, and so that'll I would assume Turner gets dealt, but like I don't know. Some people are maybe calling that Raya is better with his feet and could actually start over Ramsdale, which I think would be wild. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's why I didn't
Our
understand
team
that signing. Yeah.
Arteta did know, though, a couple years ago to upgrade from Leno, and everybody was like, "What's going on here? Why are we signing Ramsdale for 25 million?" And now a similar question gets asked. So that was just my thought process on that.
I want to get the name right because I said Sanchez from Brighton and you said Raya from Brentford. I thought they signed
Yeah.
Sanchez from Brighton. Let me go scroll
No,
through.
he's
The
going
one
to
and only
Chelsea.
Fabrizio. There's only one guy you need to know is Fabrizio. Was it Raya or Sanchez? I thought they got Sanchez.
It's Raya. It's Raya. Sanchez is going to Chelsea.
Sanchez is going to Chelsea. That's what it was. That's another one. We'll get to it. I didn't understand that one either. Okay, it was Sanchez. So you're okay. 100% right. All right, let's move it along here so we can try and catch as many of these teams as we can under an hour. Let's just go right to Manchester City next. They've got the team that I've got earmarked next. And I'll start off the conversation with looking at Gundogan getting swapped out for Kovacic. I just think there's a massive drop off in what we're getting offensively now with Gundogan being a much better offensive player and then obviously being a player that's been in that Guardiola system for so long. He knew where to be in the box, in and around. You saw it late in the season last year. He was the guy that was actually getting the goals. It wasn't Haaland. Remember, it was Gundogan that was getting all the big moments because he just knows the system, knows where to be, knows where the ball's obviously going to end up. And that's just going to be a massive drop off to Kovacic. I thought they could have done a little bit better. Tried to obviously hold on to Gundogan, but he wanted that new challenge, so you can't do much about that. Otherwise, with Manchester City, we're talking a lot of rumors, right? What happens to the fullbacks with Consuelo? What also happens to Kyle Walker? Riyad Mahrez goes to Saudi Arabia. That was one of the players, but they've got Foden, they've got Cole Palmer, they've got obviously some wing placements. They're rumored to another guys. On paper, they've really only swapped out Kovacic for, like I said, Gundogan. They haven't done too much other than that.
Yeah, I think when I think of Kovacic, I think of him as more of like a deeper lying midfield player. Gundogan's more of that like get in the box to box, like you mentioned, like scores big goals. I don't see that really as like what Kovacic does.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like Kovacic is like a really great like a solid number six, like a backup. Um, or I don't think that he'll start though immediately. I mean, he'll play in the six, play in the eight, but what I think is that they'll probably sub in Foden for where Gundogan was.
Yeah, he
That's
likes
what I
throwing him in the middle.
that's what I would do personally. I mean that's what I would assume happens. I think that yeah, so I think that Kovacic for Gundogan swap is valid. Like yes, it's a downgrade obviously in the roster. Yeah, their roster right now currently is a slight downgrade, but they have room. They had room to be downgraded because they're the best club in the world by a pretty
Right.
wide margin.
Right.
So yeah, it's a downgrade, but it's marginal. I think that Mares is somewhat marginal. I think that they have other pieces there, and
I'm a
then yeah,
little.
it's kind of wait and see with them, like you mentioned with Cancelo, with Walker. That'll be the big piece, really, where I think is this gonna are they gonna win for like what the sixth time in 7 years or whatever?
Yeah, we'll certainly get in our predictions here at the end. I'm a little concerned for City because you talk about, players want to move on to a new club for a new project. It feels like this project at City's done, right? We've won a ton of Premier Leagues, we've won the Mickey Mouse Cups, and we finally got our hands on the big one, the Champions League. It just feels like the project's done. Like, how are you going to keep a Bernardo Silva motivated and happy throughout the season? He's already wanting to get out. He's tried to get out in January. Now he's trying to get out again this summer. Kyle Walker, rumored to go to Bayern. Consuelo wants to go to Barcelona. These players are like done with this project. They've been here for so long. They've accomplished everything. I'm looking for somebody new in the Premier League. I just think City's just going to kind of get tired of doing it. It's hard to show up. The motivation's dropped a little bit with having won the Champions League. Yeah, be a little concerned with City this year. I think maybe they may take a touch of a step back, but we'll see. All right, let's move on to another team, or let's catch Manchester United. Let's go over to the red side there of Manchester, where obviously they bring in Mason Mount, possibly to replace Eriksson and be the starter there at the number 8 position. Thought it was a good signing, maybe a touch money, but whenever you get players transferred within the league, and they're especially English-born players, you're going to pay a little bit much. But obviously they're a big signing, and it'll be announced here in the next day or so. Was Rasmus Højlund coming over there from Atalanta. They needed the number 9. Weghorst was absolutely terrible. Martial's hurt every other game. They had no number 9. This guy only scores 9 goals and he's worth like 90 million. You're literally paying for the future. Like, hope it works out, because it certainly looks like you overpaid for the guy. A lot of money in projecting for the future. 9 goals wasn't a lot in Serie A, but boy, do they need the striker. And then obviously, their other signing there was Onana for De Gea. Better with his feet. Certainly better with his feet. Knows Ten Hag from their Ajax days, so maybe that makes me feel a little bit better. But the big signing was the striker. They needed a goal scorer. See how he pans out in the Premier League. Maybe a little bit overpriced. What do you think there, Matt?
Well, we didn't get to talk about Johnny Evans, the center half signing.
Johnny. No. He's hanging around the club. They actually haven't signed him. He's just hanging around. But
I
yes,
think he's going to get signed. I think that actually he would be like a decent like depth piece.
Yeah, he's depth. Fine. I agree.
So Alanga goes to Forest, probably good for his career, just to like get out because he was a rotational piece. They get Telles, goes to Saudi Arabia, probably got a nice little fee from there. But yeah, it's all about Højlund. I think the Onana signing, David De Gea gave, everything for Manchester United the past like decade, and it feels like he's just been like completely booted out. I don't know. Did they do anything nice for him like towards the end, Jason?
Well, because they thought they were going to re-sign him, they didn't do like the typical last game, the Ring of Honor, or any like kind of thing in front of the supporters. So no, he got nothing. He got nothing because they thought they were going to bring him back.
I think that it shows. It's a credit to Ten Hag, really. He's
He's been
He's
ruthless. I
been
love
so
him.
ruthless, I think, with some of these, like, you get Ronaldo out of the club, you stop Harry Maguire from starting, being the captain, etc. I mean, Onana is an upgrade. It just is right now. Like, I think that De Gea, he gave so much to the club. Yes, De Gea is maybe a better shot stopper because I mean he's arguably like the best, like one of the best shot stoppers in the world. But Onana is so great with his feet, so it's going to change everything.
Hmm.
Your whole team is going to be different now because of that back. I mean, in the modern football, like you have to have a ball playing goalie. And so Onana is him. That's a nice move. I think that Mason Mount is interesting. We'll see how that one works out for them. I really don't know too much about Mason Mount if it'll be a good move or not. But like you mentioned, like it's all about this Hoyland, like
Yeah,
paying this nice money, and I think that you just have to trust in the project that Ten Hag's been. He's really
he's doing
what
so
has
good.
Ten Hag hasn't made too many mistakes. I mean, when you look at it, Anthony hasn't lived up fully yet. Did Ten Hag, was he the one that signed Jadon Sancho, or was that prior to him?
No, he's
That's
been on
I'm
the
not
team
sure.
for 2 years. That was prior. That would have been
Yeah, yeah, so that was prior.
was prior.
Um,
But
the
remember, he also
Casemiro.
he remember his reign started with benching Ronaldo and eventually getting him off the team. So he's made big time decisions. You're right. I love listening to his press conferences. You can tell he's an asshole. You can tell he's super demanding, and it's either his way or the highway. I
Yeah,
absolutely love the guy. Where they need, and they're rumored to get Amrabat, they're from Fiorentina, the Morocco. They're weak in midfield. Like when they don't have um, uh, Casemiro, like when Bruno needs a rest, like when you're bringing in Fred, McTominay, there's a massive drop off. They need to bring in. That's the one thing that they're rumored to get is another midfielder. If they get that midfielder, you brought in a striker, you brought in an attacking midfielder and Mount, you brought in a defensive midfielder and Amrabat or somebody else, and you brought in a goalkeeper. Fantastic window if we can sure off another defensive midfielder.
yeah, I think that would be nice. Supposedly, they're trying to enter themselves into the Romeo Lavia
Lavia,
discussions.
yep.
That's where Liverpool is all in right now. I feel like on Lavia, and everyone knows it. So somebody might try to sneak up and snag him. But yeah, I think overall, it's just hard to. I think it's a good window from United. I think
Yes.
it's a pretty darn good window. I think that Fred's going to leave the club. I think that it was probably his time. Overall, I think the Onana thing, it just changes the way that they'll play. I think that you'll be so much better in possession. Um, and then yeah, we'll just big question mark really on Hoyland. We'll find out.
Yeah, that is the big question mark. But if he pans out, it's a great signing because he signed a 6-year deal. 4 years into it, you'll tack on another 3 years. So if you spend 90 million, but you get the dude for a decade and he's bagging, near 20 goals a season, like great. It ends
Yeah,
up being a great signing. It's just
yeah.
you know, lots of money with the dude that's only got 9 goals. So we'll see. All right, let's go to Liverpool, and everybody knows that's your favorite team. I was a United fan. Everybody knows that. So why don't you kick off the discussion on how Liverpool may or may not have improved this summer?
I think that Liverpool have slightly improved thus far. I think that if we have this conversation again in 1 month, that things will be a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that they'll bring in a couple more pieces. I think that they must bring in a center half for me to get really on board with this team. They must bring in, like United are trying to bring in, a stopgap um, in terms of a number six in the midfield, a destroyer, somebody that is going to get into the middle and just be just flying around there making tackles. Hopefully, they can get Lavia over the line. He does look, I mean, he's 19 years old, young, played one full season with Southampton, was their bright spot.
Good
If they
too.
can get Lavia in, and then they can focus the last 3 or 4 weeks of the window on finding a center half rotational piece, maybe someone young, um, or maybe it's a fullback to cover for Trent if Trent wants to go into the midfield. Then it could turn into an A+ window. I mean, I think that they've done good business thus far. McAllister is an upgrade from any midfielder that they've had. And then when you go into Dominic Soboslai, I mean, he's another upgrade. He's kind of a profile, I think, of like a KDB, somebody that is really got a nice right foot on him. Gets into the half spaces, and he can score goals. But he's very, very much so, a very good number 10. I do profile him. He's 10 years younger, basically, than KDB, hopefully. And they paid a good amount of money for him. And I think that must be said, like the outgoings for Liverpool to be able to get 13 million pounds off Jordan Henderson. And then when you combine that to be getting 40 million pounds for Fabinho, who
Mm-hmm.
we can both agree last year looked a little bit leggy, a little bit tired. Liverpool got 4 really good years out of him. And then, it was a total of 5, I believe, but 4 really solid years out of Fabinho. He did look a little bit off the pace last year. To be able to get, almost 55 million pounds, not euros, not $1 million, pounds for those guys is amazing business. Milner leaves on a free. That's fine. What a great service to the club. Oxlade-Chamberlain, free. Naby Keita. Sad to see like Roberto Firmino. I mean, it was probably his time, but probably my favorite Liverpool player of the Klopp era. Um, and so yeah, I think that they addressed a few things, but they're not done yet. So I can't right now. Like if the season started and they didn't make another move, Jason, I would say that they had like a probably a C+ window. I mean, they still need to make another. They need to get Lavia over the line, and they need to get a center half because I'm telling you, if something happens, like the starting 11, Jason, is really solid if they can get Lavia over the line. But if something happens to Van Dijk, if something happens to Kanate, this team is one injury away from like I looked at it like a week ago and I'm like, okay, minus 185 to make the top 4. I think it's a shoe in. And then I go through the depth and I'm like, man, Joe Gomez hasn't cut it the last couple years. Joel Matip is starting to, his best years are behind him. If something goes wrong to Kanate or Van Dijk, it's a real issue because I do think that this team, when at their best 11, can challenge anyone in this league. So if you could get their best 11 hypothetically for 38 matches, I think that they can win the league. I really do. I think they could push City to the brink. I think that they are just as good as Arsenal. But my gosh, I mean, it just that's a hope, a hope and a dream. Really, you're never going to get your guys fully healthy for that long of time. So
Mm-hmm.
they've got to find a way to get a young center half that can step in just in case.
Yeah, of course, you hit the nail on the head perfectly because that's your squad, Liverpool. The only things I'll add on to it is they had a few issues last year. One of them was just health, right? I mean, the front line, the attacking players were just decimated with injuries much of the season. So just getting everybody healthy will certainly be a plus. Second, most week previews, when we were doing the previews every week last season, I was bagging on that midfield. It was terrible. It was long in the tooth. It was old players, Henderson, Fabinho, and Thiago. Now you've got, you pronounced the guy's name from Leipzig much better than I did. And then obviously McAllister. No. So the midfield is better. And to your point, get Lavia over the mound. Midfield is drastically better. And then the last thing I was going to say, which you said it several times, is, yeah, they need a new center back. You lose Van Dijk or Kanate, and all of a sudden they're going to start conceding goals left and right. So they need to bring in some depth. So, yeah, you nailed it. Let's just move on to the next team. Let's move on to Chelsea is the next team we've got here. A big boy club here in Chelsea, where obviously they've been busy this summer. They brought in the new manager in Pochettino. That right there is certainly going to help them. They lose players. They finally get Nkunku in from Leipzig. That one was rumored, felt like for a year and a half, but he's finally in there. They lose N'Golo Kante, of course. They lose Kovacic over to Manchester City. They lose Kai Havertz over to Arsenal, of course. And then they lose Mason Mount over to Manchester United. But what have they done? They have certainly brought in, again, like I said, Nkunku. That'll be great. Did pick up an injury, I think, against Dortmund. Yeah. So I don't know how long, but he did suffer that injury. They brought in the new goalkeeper there for Brighton. As we've talked about, Sanchez. I don't fully get that. They lose Pulisic. He goes to AC Milan. This feels like, when I look at Chelsea, though, it feels like with Pochettino and just how they'll play, like counter-attacking, they'll play high pressing, just like Spurs did under Pochettino. Remember when they won the Premier League a couple years back when they weren't in any European competitions? I don't know if they win the league, but damn, they're going to be up in top four, and I think this team's going to be fighting for it. Love Pochettino that much. What do you think? They lose a Bungie Yang. I'm perfectly fine with that. He's a cancer in the locker room. I'm fine with what they've done. They've brought in some money, and the guys they've allowed hang around are ones that they've paid for in previous windows. It's time to see if they can develop and what they do under Pochettino. What do you think, man?
My gosh, I don't think like in the last like when you look at the January window to this one, like the new owner of Todd Bowley and all of this stuff, I have just never seen this many like ins and outs over the course of 7, 8 months. I mean, this is truly wild to me. Like they lose a lot of solid senior leadership. I mean, you go down the list: Koulibaly, Kovacic, Mendy, Havertz, Loftus Cheek had been a decent person of service. Mason Mount, a captain in Azpilicueta, Pulisic, and then you just get all of this. I mean, they made so many signings over the last 8 months. The January window, all young players like Mudryk. I mean, he has to be kind of mentioned in here. I mean, he's a new player. Yeah, the Nkuku stuff. I mean, hopefully, I hate to say it, but hopefully, like Nkuku is just a little bit banged up for the first matchup against
For the first match, right?
Um, but I don't know what to say. Like this Nicholas Jackson, people are really high on him from Villarreal.
Don't know about him.
Um, I mean, he's going to most likely lead the line for them, and nobody. I don't know. I just don't know. It's going to be very nice. Pochettino, yes, I rate him highly, but this is a ton of moving pieces. I don't see top four. I really don't. I don't. Yeah, it's going to be a huge boost for them to have no European competition whatsoever. I mean, that's a massive, massive edge.
Mm-hmm.
But this is you've got to pull together a lot of new faces in new places quickly. I am not so sure about this. I mean, yes, you've got the likes of like Thiago Silva, who will freaking be the captain at 38 years old or whatever, probably in this match day one. And yes, he's still solid. But holy shit, Jason. I mean, this is a lot of people. This is a lot. I don't know what to say about it. I mean, Mudryk is a new player. He's still, I mean,
Oh yeah.
think about N'Golo Conte. He leaves. I don't know what to think about Chelsea and their business. The jury is completely out for them right now. I would say they are not making top four. I just think it's too many new faces and just a lot of young players that we're not sure of really. So maybe some of these players though that they bought are really young and nice and they can gel quickly and be really good. I don't know. They're a very unknown quantity. It truly does make me like Liverpool a little bit in match day one. I mean, you're getting a team full of 7, 8 guys out of the 11 on Liverpool that have true continuity with one another. We bring in a couple nice new midfielders, and then this Chelsea team, it's so new. I know that they've got a preseason to try to figure things out, whatever, but this is a lot. They're lucky that first match is at Stamford Bridge. I'm telling you, if that was at Anfield, I think they get rocked.
You're right. I love that. Yeah, I would tip the edge certainly to Liverpool in that first game. If they're top four, I think you will look back at the season and be like, damn, Pochettino did a hell of a job with this squad if they're able to crack in that top four. Love their brand of football under the Spurs. We'll see what they can do. Speaking of the Spurs, let's go ahead and jump on into them next. Obviously, Tottenham with the new manager, guy that I can't fully pronounce. I look at their transfers and it's like, what the hell have they done? Like, literally, what have they done? They brought in Madison, fantastic piece coming in from Leicester, able to poach him as Leicester gets relegated down to the championship. Make the Kulusevski signing official, so now he's on board. Other than that, we're not talking about all that much here with this team. And now you got the status of Harry Kane. And we know the transfer window is open until September 1st. It looks like the first time ever of being in a summer transfer window that this is the window that Harry Kane's going to leave. There's always rumors, and Daniel Levy's never – obviously never moved him on. I don't think you lose, essentially the Golden Boot winner. Obviously, Haaland was able to do it, but if it wasn't Haaland, it would have been Harry Kane easily for the second consecutive season. This is the Golden Boot winner essentially every year in the Premier League. You don't move him on for nothing. You get your 90 to 100 million off of him. Team's going to struggle a little bit. Obviously, they're expected to play a little bit more offensive here with the new manager. They didn't do anything to bring in a center back. That's what worries me the most is we've not improved the defense. They've got a rumor for a player that's coming over from Wolfsburg. Not a guy I know a ton, so I'll trust them that their scouting is right. But if they don't get that over the line, they've done nothing to improve the defense. And you've got a midfielder in Eric Dyer as your center back. They've got to get in some proper center backs in on this team. There'll always be an over. We're going to concede a lot, and their offensive pieces are enough. Although maybe if they lose Harry Kane, that's obviously going to take a hit. I don't like anything about this team, to be quite honest, Matt.
I love one thing that you just said, though. I think that this team in the first 10 weeks of the season is an over 2.5 bet.
Yeah.
I mean, where is the defense? Yes, it looks like the Wolfsburg lad is going to get over the line. I've seen some videos on him. He's really fast. But he's an unknown quantity. They haven't. They're kind of tied. Their hands are kind of tied behind their back because of the new stadium. I mean, that costs so much money. I don't think that they have the funds, Jason, to really be going out and splashing the cash. That really sucks for this, post-Koglu. I mean, you would like to think right when you get in there, you could make a couple of adjustments to this team that was really bad last year. But there's nothing really. I mean, they're gonna get the center half over the line. It looks like Kane is gone, which leads me to my first bet that I've placed. The only future that I've placed is I did grab Richarlison as Golden Boot. Saw somebody on Twitter kind of talking about that. Okay, if he goes, there's a ton of value here. And I agreed with it 100%. I mean, you're getting an offensive-minded manager. You're getting a guy in a top 6, top 7 club. If he can lead the line and stay healthy, the 101 should be 50-1, and it is. If you look at DraftKings, I mean, he's 50. I think that once the Kane news does become official, hopefully it does, or I wasted $100.
Definitely.
So yeah, I wasted $100 if he doesn't go. But
Matt, how can you? If you're sitting there, Daniel Levy, you're Tottenham. You ain't won a trophy. Like, don't sit here and act like you're a big club. Like, yeah, you may make European football every, but you're not a big club. You don't win shit. You got $100 million player. You can flip that into 3 quality players. You sell Harry Kane and you bring in 3 quality players. It's a no-brainer decision.
Yeah, I agree. And the Madison move is, I'll tell you, Madison is an upgrade for this team. I mean, they sucked. They just weren't inspiring. He's another great player for an over 2.5. A kid that just doesn't play a lick of defense.
You know what's going to be good? Them to concede first. Remember they conceded first all last year? Well, look for that angle again. They're going to concede. Their defense sucks. And they don't have Hugo. Who is their new goalkeeper? They don't have Hugo. Hugo went on. Did they bring in? Let me look at this. Are any of these names a keeper?
Yeah, they one of them is, I think.
Oh, yeah, here's that Guillermo guy is a keeper, I think, from Empoli.
Yeah, one's a done deal. We'll see. But
didn't I take over 2.5 in like every Empoli game? This guy can't be that damn good. I think I was.
This team is an over 2.5 Rockaroo, I think.
Yeah. Right.
In terms of like, there's just when I look up and down the futures angles, I mean, there is just really no value to be found. Like, I want to be on Aston Villa top 10. It's minus 400. I want to be on like Fulham bottom 10. That's
nice. We got to get to Fulham. I was waiting to talk about them. They're up there. They downgraded big time. You lose Mitrovic and you bring in Raul Jimenez. That's a massive downgrade. Mitrovic is so much better in the air. He's so much better with his feet. You just downgraded so much by bringing in Raul Jimenez over Mitrovic.
100%. So,
oh my God, like, way step back.
I mean, you could look into like this team, Tottenham, like it's just not enough on the meat on the bone for me. Plus 450 to finish in the bottom 10 of the league.
I would,
but it's.
I don't know quite.
I would want more. I would need like 10-1. Like if you look at Liverpool and United, those teams are like 16, 20-1. Like I need 10. Yeah. Like to pull that trigger, I think like it's not enough meat on the bone for a full season really. But, if you could find like an over under points total, I would take Tottenham under.
Mm-hmm.
like slightly.
That'd be cool. I mean, book
They've
off
got
into
a
that
lot of new
future. That'd
faces,
be cool.
and so we'll see. Yeah, I'm not very high on Tottenham right now.
I would certainly agree. All right, we got about 20 minutes or so left. Want to hang out with you guys here on the Premier League preview show. Don't forget, every season during the Premier League, we'll be joined with you guys every Thursday previewing that upcoming weekend games. We're going to do something different this season, too. We're also going to give out a parlay of the week. Matt will give you a leg. I'll give you a leg. We'll have a between the post parlay of the match week every single week. So look forward to those starting next week. Well, again, we've got about 20 minutes left. We've got a plethora of teams still to hit and even give you guys some season predictions. So these remaining teams, let's just get the team and maybe a few sentences of what you think about that team, and let's roll through it that way so we can catch them all. I'll just kind of catch them in order of how I've got them written down here. With the first one being Burnley. Much like last season on the predictions or preview show, I didn't have much to say about the three new teams that came up. I don't watch the championship at all. I have nothing to say about this. Burnley, don't know. Yeah. Do you have anything to say about Burnley?
I mean, I just know that they killed it last year. Vincent Company,
Yes,
killed it.
Killed it. They qualified like April for the Premier League. I think.
Yeah,
Like really.
like
Early.
I think if there's the one of the newcomers, but Burnley, they've been in this league for so many years consecutively. They bounce and they come right back up, make a nice managerial move. I think with Company, who learned under Guardiola towards the end, learned under a bunch of world class managers. I think Burnley stay up. I think that they stay up, but I don't know enough about the roster to really warrant that.
Yeah.
That's just me. But they it looks like they've spent some money. Um, they've spent some money. They've gotten some pieces. When you look at some of these other newbies, like Luton, I mean, has Luton even made a move?
Luton Town? Yeah, they're gonna be right back down in the championship. They'll be right back
Yeah.
down. I mean, they were like that. I know everybody's talking about Wrexham, and they want like them to follow that scenario because apparently Luton like jumped the league like every year. Yeah, they're gonna go right backwards.
Yeah.
All right, let's catch another one here in Forest. When I look at what Forest has done, I'm not seeing a ton to maybe really fix some defensive issues. Yeah, we brought in some pieces. You can talk about Elanga, maybe from United, but nothing that moves the needle. This team will be generally fighting for relegation again. Like Chris Wood comes in from Newcastle. Like nothing that moves the needle. Defense still sucks. They're going to be at the bottom five-ish at the table most of the season.
Yeah, another team that I'm like interested in. They were always a nice team to back last year at home. You can say that about they were tough at home. I would still consider that trend.
Yes,
back at home. But I think on the road, this is a team that can get absolutely blitzed. Like this defense, like you mentioned, like they haven't improved it at all, and this defense sucked last year. So, no real inspiring signings. I do think Elanga is a nice piece. Like I think that he's a good player. Will help Forest, but yeah, just not enough. Steel, what we like to call it. Not enough defensive steel. So yeah, a team to look at home, a team to fade or look at overs. I think on the road.
West Ham's next here on my list, and they're a little bit of a difficult team to talk about just because they've got so many rumors out there. They haven't really brought anything in. They lose Declan Rice, of course, but you look at their other transfers, we're just kind of waiting to see what rumors they can bring in. Obviously, they lift the Europa Conference League title last season, struggle in the Premier League. They'll probably bounce back, but I need to see. They're going to lose Skamaka, they lose Declan Rice. I need to see who they bring in here in the next couple of weeks, because they just haven't done much, and this was a team that struggled all season last in the Premier League. So I'm not sure what you'll get out of this team.
I think that this is one that you might need to look at. Just if they don't make any moves, this is a bet that I think that I would probably consider is this team to be in that relegation. I think they'll be in that relegation scrap a dilly. I mean, look at this. They're going to be in Europa League. They're trying to get James Ward-Prowse. They backed out of that deal. They need to bring in a Rice replacement, 100%. And we know that player won't be nearly as good as Rice. So this team was in a relegation scrap all last year, okay? Then they have this nice high. Oh, they win this freaking minnow bullshit conference league, Jason, that we love to pick on. And now they're going to be in the Europa League. They're going to have some more competition. they haven't brought in anything. And we're talking about Sean Moore from Cliftonville.
Yeah, they've not done a damn thing.
Okay, so look at, and then this is the team. I mean, this is the value, Jason. This is the only one. Like, you want a season long future. You want to have something with some meat on the bone. 12-1 for West Ham to be relegated is not the worst bet you could make.
Yeah, they're going to struggle. I mean, like I said, they
They're going
struggled
to
last
struggle.
season. They're going to be in
They're
Europe
going to
again.
they're going to lose Skamaka. He's going to Inter. This team has got to. They'll have some late business for sure in them. You know, there's going to be some moves made, but then you get all these new pieces too, Jason, that they need time to gel.
Mm-hmm.
This team could be a real fade candidate in the beginning of the season. Especially throughout the middle to that first part of the year when they go Thursday, Sunday matches.
Yeah.
This team has got fade written all over them. I like West Ham. I like some of the pieces on this team, but they just haven't done it. They haven't done it. This at 12-1, shop around. I mean, maybe you could find a 14, 15-1 to be relegated. I don't know. I think that might be worth a couple pennies.
Okay, let's skip over Bournemouth. Let's skip over Luton Town. Let's catch up Brighton here, which I look at Brighton. Yeah, they did lose McAllister. We talked about him. Otherwise, the only other things I want to say is they bring in this guy from Dortmund, supposed to be a midfielder. I'm just going to trust De Zerbi. I loved watching Brighton last season. High press, turn you over, attacking. Motomo had the league most one-on-one attacks last season in the Premier League. This team attacks. They're so goddamn fun. You watch all their games. They're all high scoring. They're all high pressing. I mean, it's just so much fun. I don't know a lot of these guys they brought in, but I'm trusting De Zerbi. They're just going to rebound right what they did last year. Obviously, they add European football to their schedule, and I don't care. I just love everything. Love their style of play. It's always going to be successful most match weeks how they play and how they want to attack you. So, unless you got anything to add on the players, what you got? We'll roll on to the next team.
I think that they're just super, super solid.
Yeah.
I think that they make it in the top 10 again. Hopefully, they don't lose Caicedo. But, I mean, Mohamed Dahoud is a pretty well-known quantity. Like, he's
From Dortmund,
been a classy player for a while. I forget where he was before Dortmund. But he was solid. He's been linked to big clubs before. João Pedro, he's known quantity. I mean, he's a pretty decent forward. He was like kind of the shining star for like Watford, you know, when they were getting relegated 2 years ago. He's a good player. And then, you know, you're interested in this, like they went and got a center half from Fiorentina, a league that De Zerbi knows really well. He came from Serie A. They go pay a decent amount of money for Igor Julio. You know, he's an unknown quantity to me, but I would trust, like you kind of mentioned, in De Zerbi. And then, you know, you do lose McAllister, and you know they should have gotten more money for McAllister, and that's why they're being so stingy right now with Chelsea, which I love. They're going to make Chelsea pay so much money for Caicedo because they feel like they lost out probably on at least 20 million, I would say, on McAllister.
Yes. It was like $40 million transfer. He's well more than 40 million.
He had a clause in his contract, and Liverpool are so good generally at sniffing those ones out early, finding out the clause, and then being all over it. But to replace him with someone like James Milner, a journeyman in this league, like a guy
mentality
from the front. I mean, he's somewhat quality, like especially like they're in the Europa League this year. So I mean, you're going to need more depth and stuff. So I don't hate James Milner going there. I think that's a little bit underrated. I think he's got another year or two of top level football where he's not going to make too many mistakes for you. So, you know, he can play fullback. He can play, you know, midfield. He can do everything for you. So I think that they've had a quiet. If they can hold on to Caicedo, whether or not Caicedo will be happy about it, you know, if they could hold on to Caicedo, I think that they've had a really nice window. Quietly.
If they hold on to Caicedo, like, what did we give him more money in January for just to flip him in the summer? Just say, Arsenal, you're not getting Caicedo. Screw you, Caicedo. You're not getting a pay bump. We'll say in the summer. Like, there's just That's just bad. That's just really bad right there. All right, let's catch another team here. We got about 10 minutes left. Let's catch Newcastle, a team that's obviously going to be returning back to European football. Had a fantastic season last year. Some of their star transfers this window were losing Saint Maximum. He goes over to the Saudi Arabia League. They bring in Harvey Barnes. Maybe other than a lack of pace, that's generally seems like maybe a like for like. I don't really have too much of a problem right there. I'm just trusting Eddie Howe and maybe some of these other names of the guy there from AC Milan, the good midfielder there, Tonali, that maybe I don't personally know, but again, like Eddie Howe, love the way these teams have kind of been building their project, and there's another guy that I kind of trust, maybe even though I don't know the names. Expect them to be strong again. Love their goalkeeper, obviously, and Nick Pope. They're going to be good. Not too busy of a window. Probably more names because you watch more of the leagues. I just do Premier League and Champions League, but I think it's been fine so far.
Tonali's been known for a while. He's so young. That one's a good one. He's always been kind of like he's been compared to Pirlo. He's because he's Italian, long hair, plays kind of a deeper lying midfield role at times, but he gets a little bit more forward, better than Pirlo ever did. I agree with you. I think that Barnes for Maximum is pretty much like for like. Maximum's got a couple more tricks up his sleeve, but Harvey Barnes is a little bit stronger maybe and more direct. But that really, I think that's a wash. They really only did one thing. They went and paid a bunch of money for Tonali, who is a classy midfielder, so he will upgrade them. Very surprising, though, how they just haven't, ever since the takeover, you would think that they would have gone out and spent a bunch of money on players, and they probably still have one more signing in them, I would assume. I bet that they make one more splash here. But yeah, I mean, they've really been pretty good with their funds thus far. They haven't gone out and just overspent and got into a bunch of bad contract situations. They're going to be pretty good. But I do think that they needed to improve the squad a little bit more than this to be able to compete on all fronts when you're looking at UCL, EPL, and then, the FA Cup, League Cup, whatever. I don't have them in my top four this year. I don't think that they make top four as of right now, but this is one of those teams too, Jason. This is why some of these top four and all these bets are just, you don't even want to place them, because if this team's struggling and they're in 7th, 8th, they've got a ton of funds where they could go in January and buy a really nice player and then go on a run. So, you would expect them to most likely get out of their group in the group stage of the Champions League. So they'll be playing European football all the way into 2024. But yeah, just be interesting to see where their priorities lie.
Yep, I would agree. All right, what other teams can we catch before we maybe rifle off some predictions? I'm scrolling through. Which ones haven't we caught here? Don't really care about Palace. They've done nothing. I don't really care about that team.
Palace, thus far, they've downgraded. I mean, losing Zaha is a problem. They really haven't done much. I'm a little bit concerned about Palace. Honestly, very concerned about Palace. Everton haven't done enough to really get excited about, but you kind of just trust in Dyche.
Yeah.
To be able to get them through this league. Fulham.
We mentioned Fulham. They're downgraded.
Yeah,
and
slight down.
Now Willian, after getting a deal, is now maybe going to jump off of that deal and go to Saudi Arabia. That even though just the striker position they've downgraded so much from Mitrovic to Jimenez.
And Silva, Marco Silva, who's a fantastic manager, that's why you love Fulham. He's been offered a contract in Saudi Arabia, and he's not sure what to do. So I don't know if that's been cleared up. Bournemouth, I don't know how they stayed in the league last year, but they did. And, looks like they've made some moves, but not enough for me to really, be one way or the other on them.
And then I'm seeing, obviously, we got Sheffield, which they're a newbie. I don't know much damn about them anyways. And then the other one would be Wolves, which they suck. They will suck. Yeah. They lost their best player in Ruben Neves. They're taking a step back. They'll be in a relegation fight. I mean, I think every week we see in the Premier League, they score 1.2 goals per game. Yeah, they're going to suck again.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, they haven't made any real transfer moves. So, Wolves need to make a splash.
All right, Mark. All right, Matt. Top four. We'll go back and forth. We'll go team. Withhold your champion for the last one. So I'll go first. I have City in the top four.
Okay.
Yeah,
Same.
just give me one
Yeah,
of the teams.
uh, Arsenal are going to be in the top four,
United will be in the top four.
and Liverpool will be in the top four.
Arsenal, Liverpool. Those are the four teams. It'll be
Those are,
United. It'll be City. Or it'll be Manchester, Arsenal, Liverpool. Those are your top
and
four
I
teams.
think and yes, the league has got. Oh, we didn't talk about Aston Villa.
Oh, Villa. Oh, let's catch Villa. Yeah, they're
They've
going to be
had
up in there.
quietly maybe like the best window, but just to go back into that, I do think that like in terms of finding a future bet that I do like is like not getting on an exacta, but you get on you do get on an exact four teams to be the top four.
Oh yeah.
I do like those four. I think that those are the four.
Yeah.
I think United, Liverpool, Arsenal, City. And I don't know what that I got to shop around for it. Maybe that's like I don't know. I would hope to get like 2-1 on that probably.
Would a book from Shopping the Futures, just because I'm not a big Shoopers guy, would they want you to put those four teams in order or just pick the four teams?
You can find it where you can do it in order, and then your price obviously would go way up. But
Way
then
up.
you can also find it generally of just, it doesn't matter who's first or fourth.
All right, who's getting their hands on the trophy? I got it between Arsenal and United. I think City's taken a touch of a step back. Something it just doesn't.
No.
And obviously everybody knows I was high on City. I won over $7,000 with City last year. Actually, I've got my Man City kit on the way. Yes, I bought a Man City kit.
You had
fully
to.
admit that. It makes $7,000. Damn right, I bought a Man City kit. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling it with them. I'm going either City or United. It's going to pull down the trophy this year. Or sorry, Arsenal or United. Arsenal.
I'm back into. I think it's either City or it's Liverpool if Liverpool can stay healthy.
Liverpool.
I do think that Liverpool has got a shot to win. They're the only team that's been able to do it in the last 7 years, Jason.
They stay healthy. They're scoring goals all 90 minutes if they can stay healthy.
They know what it takes. I like what I see from the front four of Gakpo, Nunez, Diaz, Salah. Now you get McAllister, Szoboszlai, Curtis Jones. They just need – I wouldn't bet on it until they need 2 more transfers in to really get me that excited about it. But
all right, so those are the top 4. We need 2 more teams to round out European places for a 5th and a 6th place. I will put Chelsea in there. Without no European, they're going to just miss top 4, but they're going to be back in Europe next year. Whether that's 5th or 6th, they're going to be in there. And then the other team that's going to join them, I'll go Brighton. I think Brighton has some staying power here. I like Brighton. So I'll put Brighton and Chelsea will round out Europe. I
think that Villa do it. I think that Villa have had such a great summer. They are still a little bit light at the striker position. Like if something, were to go wrong with an injury or two, but they're solid. I like Villa. Yeah, I'll go with 2 plus 200s. I'll go with Brighton with you and Villa and hope that one of them making the top 6.
Nice. All right. Who's getting relegated? Who's going to join Luton Town? I've got Luton Town going right on back down to the championship. I've also got Forest going back down to the championship. And I'm going to say Crystal Palace goes down to the championship. So Palace, Luton Town, and Forest are the 3 teams for me. What about for you?
I do like that Palace shout. I think that I'm a bit concerned about them. I'm going to go with the West Ham at 12-1. Yeah, that's worthy of a bet. In terms of if I were to place or say my 3, it'd probably go with Luton, probably Forest, and gosh, that's tough. I'm gonna go Luton, Forest, and West Ham.
Luton, Forest.
But I do like Palace too.
I still am amazed last year that 3 Premier League teams established, Leeds maybe not fully established, but 3 Premier League teams went down. I've never seen 3 Premier League teams go down.
Yeah, that was wild.
That was pretty shocker. All right, Matt, what else do we think? Maybe any other crazy predictions as we put a bow on this? And then obviously we'll rejoin everybody next week for our first of 38 match week previews next week. We'll, of course, try and do them again every Thursday. We say every Thursday, but occasionally they pop up on a Friday. But much like last year, we'll try and stick to every Thursday. And those will be live as well, fellas.
Yep.
Thad, by the way, in the chat, he's got Arsenal winning it.
Okay.
Arsenal
Okay.
United, I hear you. What?
Um,
Any other
nothing,
crazy, wild predictions?
nothing
First
yet. Just kind
manager
of
to
have to.
get sacked? First manager to get
Ooh,
sacked? What do you think? It's always a good
uh,
bet. Let me look at one of these
uh,
shit teams. No, I'm telling you right now, it is going to be Fulham because they're pissed that Silva is toying with them going to Saudi Arabia. I'm telling you, there's a massive drop off with this team. They're going to suck. Fulham, Silva's, yeah. If I look at the managers, Marco Silva's the first one to go. Yeah,
what happens if Pochettino gets off to a bad start?
it doesn't matter. He's
You
handpicked by
think
the
he's
new regime. He's there. They can't keep making the same mistakes. I think he's around. He ain't going nowhere.
okay? Yeah, I don't know. I would need to look into the market a little bit more. But yeah, nothing really more to add for me because we just have to kind of wait and see on
Yeah,
what business gets done. We still have almost a full month of transfer news.
yeah.
So a lot more pieces still to be shuffled around.
All right, fellas. With that being said, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us here on the Premier League Preview Show. We'll be back with you guys again next Thursday for our first of 38 match week previews. And again, we'll have our parlay between the post parlay of the week. Look forward to cashing that suckers with you guys every week. It's going to be a wild ride, a long ride, and look forward to being there with you guys every single week. So thank you, Matt. Look forward to going this season with you, man.
Yep. Thanks, Jason. That was fun.
Have a good one, everybody.